Hi, I'm Jordan from Unruly Strength, and today I'm going to give you a quick tutorial on how you can complete a functional movement screen at home. So first, the functional movement screen is a series of 7 movements designed to show how well you move through some common patterns found not just in exercise, but in daily life as well. In this video, I'm going to show you how to complete that functional movement screen and how to do it at home with using just a few objects you probably have lying around the house. So let's get it started. First, you're going to need a long cylindrical object, something like a piece of PVC pipe or a wooden dowel or a broom handle. You're going to be using this for a few of the tests. You're also going to need some masking tape or painter's tape. I prefer the blue painter's tape because it doesn't stick to the walls as much, but this will work in a pinch. In addition to that, you're also going to need something to lift your heels off the ground about 2 inches. Now a 2x4 works great, but if you don't have a 2x4 lying around, you can always use a couple of big thick hardcover books. Put those right under your heels and you'll get up, 1.5 inches or so, 2 inches. Lastly, you're going to need something to measure the length of your palm. So tape measure, ruler, whatever you've got. All right, why don't you go gather your equipment, and I'll meet you back here in a second. Now I wanted to give you a few quick notes on recording the movement screen that will really help me evaluate your movement in the best way possible. So the first is going to be camera placement. When you are setting up your camera, make sure that the lens is facing forward, not tilted down or up. And also make sure that the lens is somewhere between your belly button and your shoulder height. That'll allow me to see all of your movement throughout all of these different tests. Also, be sure that there's nothing bright behind you. Nothing like a window, any bright lights, anything like that is going to mess with the camera's meter, and it's going to make it really dark and really hard for me to see anything. Last, make sure that your entire body is within the frame. I want to see you from head to toe and a little bit of space around you so I can see all of your movement. Just get those things and we'll be all set. All right, first up is the deep squat assessment. So in order to set up for the deep squat assessment, you're going to place your feet about shoulder width apart. You can use the PVC pipe or the broom handle to line up the inside of your foot with your armpit. And you're going to take the pipe, put it on your head, and walk your hands out to a point where your elbows are 90 degrees. Press the bar overhead and squat down as deeply as you can while keeping that bar overhead. Give it a few attempts, 2, 3 attempts. If it's not working for you, we'll show you in a second what you can do. Here I'm showing you what the deep squat looks like from the side. Please, when you film your video, do this movement from at least a 45-degree angle, or you can do it head-on and side view like I'm doing here. So if your deep squat assessment doesn't go well, if you feel uncomfortable doing this, or if you see any of these faults I'm about to show you, when you get set up and you start going down into your deep squat, if you find yourself leaning forward excessively, see here my hands are coming far forward, far in front of my toes, or right there you can see that my heels are coming off the ground. What we're going to do is go ahead and grab that 2x4 or the books, whatever you have to elevate your heels. And you're going to place that on the floor, and you're going to set up the same exact way you did in the beginning. Feet shoulder width apart, toes forward, bar overhead, but this time with your heels on the books or the 2x4. Go ahead from that same 45-degree angle and film yourself doing the deep squat. Next up is the hurdle step. So in order to complete the hurdle step, you're going to need both your PVC pipe and the roll of tape. So what you're going to do is you're going to put that piece of tape across the doorway at the height of what I'm pointing to right here, that little bony protrusion in your shin. You're going to put the top of the tape at the top of that little bony part right below your kneecap. You're going to unroll the tape across the doorway and do the same thing on the other side. This is going to give you a target that's at the same height as your tibia. Once you have that set, you can go ahead and grab your PVC pipe, put it across your back as I'm showing here. And then you're going to balance on one leg and put your other leg over top of the piece of tape without touching it. What I'm trying to do here is to keep my ankle, my knee, and my hip all in the same line. You'll notice that the pipe across my back is not tilting too much to either direction. That's what you're going to try to accomplish. Just trying to maintain balance while you put your foot over the tape, touch your heel down on the opposite side, and then pull it back while maintaining balance. That brings us to the inline lunge. Now to set up for the inline lunge, you're going to need a piece of tape that's the length of your tibia. So we can use the tape that we used for, or reuse the tape that we used for the hurdle step, or you can grab a new piece of tape. And what you're going to do is start the tape at the floor, preferably a little bit better than I'm doing here. And you're going to cut it off the length of your tibia, or again, to that little bony part of your shin right below your knee. Once you have that piece of tape, you can place that on the floor. All set with that, go ahead and grab your PVC pipe, and you're going to place it on your back. You're going to put your palm in the small of your back facing outward, and you're going to touch 3 points on your back. You're going to touch your tailbone, your mid-back, and the back of your head. Next, you're going to place your feet properly, putting the toe of one foot on the back of the piece of tape and the heel of the other foot on the front of the piece of tape. Then as you see here, I'm going to descend, touching my rear knee down to the ground several times. Then you can repeat on both sides. Do your best to keep your torso perfectly vertical while you're moving through the assessment. The shoulder clearing test is just to check to see if you have pain while doing this movement. If you do, just let me know in your video. So as you can see here, I'm placing one hand on the opposite shoulder and lifting my elbow. Again, if you feel pain during any of this movement, just make a note of it. Now for the shoulder mobility assessment. In order to perform this, you're going to have to turn your back to the camera. You're going to make fists in both hands with your thumbs inside the fist. And you're going to extend your arms sideways, and then in one movement, you're going to put one hand over the top and one hand under the bottom and try to touch them. Don't sneak your hands together. Don't keep pushing once your hands have settled on your back. Just leave them wherever they fall. So before you're finished with this test, I'm going to need you to measure from the tip of your middle finger down to the base of your palm, right at your wrist. Make a note of that in your video. The active straight leg raise. Now for this test, you're going to have to do a couple measurements. Grab your tape measure, and you're going to measure from the very top of your hip. So feel your hip, for that little bony part, and then you're going to measure from there right down to the top of your kneecap. Make a note of that length, and then you're going to take half of it. Mine is 18. I'm going to bring the tape measure down to 9. Now what I'm going to do is take a piece of tape and mark on my femur. So mark on my leg 9 inches above my kneecap. I'm going to take this mark and I'm going to line it up with the edge of the door frame. I'm going to lie on my back, palms up, toes pulled toward my knees, and then lift one leg at a time. What I'm trying to do here is to clear the door frame. Make sure to film this assessment from a 45-degree angle so I can see if you are or are not clearing the door frame. The spinal extension clearing test is just a quick test to see if you have any pain during spinal extension. So you're going to walk yourself out into a push-up position, bring your hands under your shoulders, and then press yourself up while arching your back. Make a note if there's any pain during this movement. All right, moving on to the trunk stability push-up. Now, in order to perform the trunk stability push-up, you're going to get yourself into a push-up position, but with your arms over your head. You're going to start pulling your elbows down toward your sides until your thumbs are even with an imaginary line drawn at the top of your forehead. At that point, you're going to lift your elbows, lift your knees, tighten your abdominal region, and press yourself up in one solid movement. Women performing this assessment will bring their hands down to a point even with their chin rather than the top of their forehead. The spinal flexion clearing test is designed to see if there's any pain in your back while flexing or rounding your spine. In order to perform this maneuver, you're going to get into a quadruped position on your hands and knees, push your hips back to your heels, dip your head toward the floor, and extend your arms. Note if there's any pain with this movement. And for the final assessment, the rotary stability assessment. Set up for this assessment, you're going to need your tape measure or your ruler, and you're going to put it on the floor in front of you. Pull it out to 6 inches, and then place your thumbs 6 inches apart. You can look back and place your knees 6 inches apart also. Now your hips should be stacked over your knees, and your shoulders should be stacked directly over your palms. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm extending one hand and the opposite foot simultaneously, then bringing my elbow to my knee, extending again, and finally placing my hand and knee back on the ground. Make sure to film this from a 45-degree angle. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me and ask.